It is not a good feeling to feel like a man is taking you for granted in a relationship or even within a dating dynamic. And yet, let's face it happens to the best of women. It's happened to me in my single days where I've liked a man and felt like I was really invested in him, invested in our connection, but he wasn't returning it the same way. And thankfully, in my marriage, I would say I really feel adored and loved, but it's because I teach this stuff to you and I make sure to practice what I preach inside of my relationship. So let's talk about in today's video what to do if you are feeling taken for granted by the man you love or like and are in a romantic dynamic with. This is dating and relationship coach Sami, Wunder, and for the last 10 years, I've been specializing in helping strong, smart, successful women find and keep amazing romantic love. So, when it comes to the feeling of being taken for granted, let's explore this feeling a little bit because it might look different for different women. In a dating dynamic, the feeling of being taken for granted could look like that you don't find that the man you like or the man you're seeing is investing a lot of his time, energy, and attention on you. So he tends to blow hot and cold. He tends to be inconsistent in his communication, and you find that if you wouldn't bring up the topic of meeting again, or you find that if you wouldn't initiate the call or the text, then you might not hear from him for a long time. And of course, in this situation, you feel taken for granted because your emotions are invested. And that looks like wanting this thing to work, wanting this connection, this dynamic to grow with this man. And this is where you feel taken for granted because you feel like the effort you're putting in emotionally and the effort you're putting in terms of your time, your headspace, your energy into this man and into this connection is not being returned to you in the same proportionate way. Now, of course, within a relationship, being taken for granted can be magnified, which means that sometimes we will be in a dating dynamic with a guy where we are not feeling that prioritized, we are not feeling that special, but if we are not a Sami Wunder student, for example, maybe we will keep making more effort, maybe we will keep pushing the connection, and maybe we will end up being in a relationship with this man out of our own creation, right? Like, there are so many amazing women, when they do not understand the principles of masculine and feminine energy, they literally go in their masculine, chase the guy, and get into a relationship with him. And they ignore how he's not prioritizing them, he is not looking after their needs. And when you create such a relationship from this dynamic in dating where you were initially feeling taken for granted, then that dynamic of feeling taken for granted only just gets further magnified inside a relationship equation. Now, of course, it is also possible that the dating dynamic was tight. You were a very high value woman, he prioritized your needs, he was making all the effort, but once he got you and you guys started to sleep together or you guys started to live in together, or you started to relax a little more on your appearance, on how much you were doing and giving in the relationship, that is when the tables started to turn around. And that is when slowly but surely you started to feel like his effort was reducing, your effort was increasing, and you started to feel more taken for granted in the relationship. So I'm just giving you these different scenarios because it can look different for different women who are watching this video right now. So more examples of feeling taken for granted are when you find that within a relationship dynamic, you're the one who's always adjusting to his schedule, you're the one who's always making the sacrifice, you're the one who's always planning the holidays and the free time and the magic dates. And if you didn't do it, it wouldn't happen. Like, raise your hand. If this is you right now, say yes in the comments. If you wouldn't do it, it wouldn't happen. And of course, you do it, but there's still a part of you that makes you feel like it would feel so good to be romanced. It would feel so good to also have your attention on me. It would feel so good to know that you also want to make an effort for our connection. So when a woman feels like, when you feel like you're the one making all the effort for this relationship to survive, for this connection to keep going and growing, when you are the one who is making more of the effort, and also when you feel taken for granted, you can see that like all that effort is barely noticed. It's like taken for granted, right? Like it's there and it's gonna be there. When men start to assume that, that's when it feels awful. So if you're finding yourself in this scenario, whether you're just dating a guy or you are already in a long term committed partnership with him, I'm going to give you some tips now on how you can turn this around. Because the good news is, in relationships, and I've been doing this for a decade, so I know what I'm talking about. You can change dynamics really fast if you know how to change them, if you know how to do the hard thing, if you're ready to be uncomfortable. Because, of course, those of you who are getting taken for granted, you have to ask yourself, what is the part I am playing here? Because nobody can take me for granted without my permission. So there's certainly some behaviors I am doing in this relationship, in this equation, in this dynamic, which make a man feel like he can take me for granted. So you can, in this moment, while you watch this video, make a very powerful decision to tell yourself that yes, I may be in this dynamic with this man right now, but I can turn this around. And I can turn this around by taking deeper personal responsibility, deeper self responsibility for how I am showing up. In fact, in all of my digital coaching programs, which you'll find on SamiWunder.com, I talk about this concept of being the high value woman. And the high value woman is not necessarily a snooty, arrogant diva that we think of, but she's a woman who knows her worth. And guess what? This woman is not perfect. Like, it's not that she'll never have a moment of mistakes or she'll never have a moment where men take her for granted. But in my eyes, a truly high value woman is who is self-aware, and she can see the situation for what it is. She can take personal responsibility for her behaviors and how she's showing up, and then she can turn things around. So this is my invitation to you, that don't get discouraged when you watch this video. Don't say, yes, Sami, I am the woman who is being taken for granted, is making all the sacrifices, is putting in more effort than he's putting in. But think of it this way. It's so good that you've landed upon this video. It's so good that you're watching it right till the end, because it's going to give you self-awareness. And when you have self-awareness, you can turn things around. You can change things in your relationship. And the change usually happens fast. So that's another good news. Like, it doesn't have to take years, okay? It can happen literally within the next 2 weeks when you follow the tips I'm going to give you. So let's start with my tip number 1. If you're being taken for granted, is to reduce what you're giving to a man. Now, overgiving to men out of love is always going to end up causing this dynamic where you get taken for granted. It's a bit like, think of how humans think, not just men, but women as well, you as well. Like, let's take personal responsibility. There are so many things, good things, high value things that we take for granted. You get clean drinking water every day from your taps if you live in the first world. You take that for granted. So many of us take Mother Earth for granted. So many of us take the sunlight for granted. Those of us living in warm countries, we're like, oh my God, too much sun. Those of us living in cold countries, we're like, oh my God, give me some sun. It's so rare, it's so scarce, right? So it is in human nature to take for granted what is freely available, what is easily available, and what is not scarce. So the issue is that most men, your partner, the man you're seeing, it's not like he's taking you for granted on purpose. He's like, oh, now I'm going to take her for granted. Most men are doing it because it's human nature to do it. Whatever is freely, readily available, accessible, we will not value it as much as we value something that is scarce or rare in our lives. So that beautiful diamond jewelry that you see in a shop and it's worth $50,000 and you're like, one day I'm going to get that for myself. That is rare. It feels rare. And I get it, when you are in a long-term relationship especially, it is so easy to not be rare. It is so easy to say, Sami, I'm living with this person 24/7. Trust me, I'm living with my husband 24/7 too. So I get it. So it's hard to be rare. But let's just start in a dating dynamic, at least, can you dial back on the giving? And all you have to do is ask yourself, am I over texting? Am I oversharing? Are my texting paragraphs longer than his texting paragraphs? This is something I will teach you inside my Leap into Love program, which, by the way, is going on a massive offer on Pink Tuesday. Our annual once a year mega sale just happens for 24 hours, where all my digital programs go up to 70 to 80% off, and you have to be on the wait list to make use of the Pink Tuesday offers, by the way. So this is happening in November. Make sure you click on the link in the description below and get on that waitlist. You'll also have the waitlist description on my website, SamiWunder.com. So make sure you get on that waitlist. All right, so we were talking about your ability to dial down on your giving in dating. Now, let's also ask ourselves the same question in a relationship. Yes, it's hard to be rare. It's hard to be that scarce object that a man values within a long-term relationship. But what are the things that you're doing in this relationship and for your man that nobody asked you to do, but you just started doing them? This is something I will always ask my clients, because most of us end up overgiving in our relationships and end up feeling taken for granted. And that's because giving is how we love. Giving is how most women love. And so the most important thing you can do is to just ask yourself, what are some of the things I can dial back on? Can I text a little less? Can I not call him when he's at work? Can I not check on him when he's coming back home? Can I just let him come when he's coming? Can I surprise him by leaving his phone alone and not popping up with my name every day, all 7 days of the week? So there are still things you can do even inside of a committed partnership or relationship or marriage to make yourself more rare in the man's mind. And no, this is not playing games, okay? I know that so many of us think these are all games, but ask yourself, like a man, just like put yourself in the man's shoes, be the man for a moment, or just be the woman for the moment, and ask yourself, if a man kept showing up on your phone 24/7, calling you, checking on you, when are you coming home, when are you going home, are you okay, how's your day going, I'm thinking of you, would you take this person seriously? Would you miss them? You wouldn't. So in my coaching practice, I always tell my clients, put yourself in the man's shoes, or just put yourself in your own shoes and ask yourself, would I be attracted to such a person? And if you wouldn't be, then why are you offering that behavior to your partner? So it's really straightforward at some level. It's not about playing games, it's about showing up as a healthy individual with a life of your own, which beautifully brings me to the second tip. If you are feeling taken for granted in your relationship. So what happens when women feel taken for granted is that they feel like the partner or the man that they love or like is more important, and his needs are more important in the relationship than the woman's own needs. So take a deep breath right now and really let this sink in. If you want to stop feeling taken for granted, you have to ask yourself, what are my needs in this relationship? What do I need to be happy, to feel safe, to feel fulfilled, to not feel like my nervous system is always walking on eggshells around this person? What do I need for my well-being in this relationship? What do I need for my well-being in this dating dynamic? So let's give you some examples, because if you're feeling taken for granted, it is very likely that you are prioritizing the other person's needs over and above your own. And one of the best and fastest ways to turn this dynamic around is to start prioritizing your needs. Not necessarily above them, but certainly not below them, certainly at the same level, and maybe sometimes even above them, because you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't give to the world. You can't love your kids. You can't love your man if you are not first loving yourself. So at some deep level, this is about self-love. And self-love is not narcissism. Self-love is not arrogance. Self-love is, I have all this love to share with the world. You know, narcissists and arrogant people, they only care about themselves. But women like you and me, who have a heart, we care for ourselves, knowing that when we care for ourselves, we can care for others, right? Knowing that when we love ourselves, we have love to offer to the world. So Ask yourself, what needs do I have in this relationship that I might need to assert? So, in a dating dynamic, it could look like, hey, it would feel good to have some communication in between dates. Hey, it would feel good to notice more effort if this is an important connection for you. And usually, my experience shows that when you have to say these things to men in a dating equation, in a relationship equation, you need to communicate these things. But in a dating equation, if you have to say these things, he's probably not that interested. Just be honest about it. Like, a man who has his wits together, who likes a woman, knows what to do to get her, and knows how to be in touch, knows how to make her feel good, and will never put himself in a position to lose her. So if you're having to have all these conversations in the dating space where you're feeling taken for granted, maybe he's not that into you. But of course, in a relationship space where two people have committed to the partnership, these kind of conversations become important because sometimes life gets in the way. Maybe there's pregnancy, maybe there's work stress, maybe you guys are changing home, living situations are changing, jobs are changing, you're doing life together, and sometimes life can come in the way of romance and life can come in the way of the relationship, and that is why within a romantic dynamic it's helpful to really talk about this. Now, my third and final tip, and this is really important, it's something I talk about in all of my programs. Leap into Love is for single women. Grab it absolutely on Pink Tuesday. But even in my inner circle recordings, which are available for women in relationships, married women, committed women, partnered women, and they're only available on Pink Tuesday one day of the year, so you'll not find them anywhere else on my website for the rest of the year. Inside the inner circle for recordings, I also talk about boundaries, because no healthy relationship is possible without boundaries. And when women love men, sometimes we can love too much, and sometimes we can forget that drawing a boundary, saying a no, prioritizing ourselves, letting our partner know that we are available for this but not beyond this time. We are available to do X and Y for a party but not beyond that. We can forget that and we can become overgivers. So I think point number 1 about giving a little less, and then point number 3 about boundaries, they're interconnected, because obviously somebody who is giving more has poor boundaries. And again, don't judge yourself. You have to learn from this. And of course, the tips I am giving in this video, I am not giving you entire trainings and how-tos. And this is why I highly recommend that you go check out the Pink Tuesday offers this year in November, because just for one day, you can grab literally all of my amazing content, trainings, programs. Every single program is going to be available on discount. And the catch is just for 24 hours. So you don't want to miss out. You want to make sure you are on that waitlist. So I hope this video was helpful. If it was, make sure to show me love. I am wisdom tooth pain right now. Let me know in the comments. And I love you, women. You are wonderful, beautiful, good-hearted people. I attract really good people I work with, and use all of these lessons as an opportunity to learn, to grow, to evolve into a better, higher queen version of yourself, and don't use it to beat yourself up. I'm going to be back soon on the next video next week. Until then, take good care of yourselves and go join that Pink Tuesday waitlist and learn all these amazing skills that I can teach you with so much more depth inside of my paid programs. Lots of love.